Thanks for joining us for today's episode of The Capitalist Investor. As always, you got Mark and Derek.
Mark, what's going on, man?
What the dilly? They were just, sharing some stories about almost dying this morning on the way to work during this snowstorm.
It's not a good week to be in Northeast Ohio.
How much snow did you get?
Dude, I got so much. So, we both lived here our whole lives, and I'm kind of used to this stuff now. But we just got absolutely dumped on.
It's ridiculous, dude. I think we got 20 inches.
Yeah, I think it's at least 18 inches.
Terrible. It's too early for that.
And my power's out. So
I heard the east side is all down.
So I mean,
Nate hasn't showered in 3 days.
So my power went out yesterday. So I was trying to work from home. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to shower. I'm just going to throw some clothes on and try to come into the office. So I had no power. I threw up my garage door manually, and I could barely see outside.
Oh, jeez.
I'm like, all right, well, I guess this just isn't going to work out for me today.
No, it's awful, awful, awful time to be here. That's why we got to go to Vegas.
Oh, yeah. I would kill for Vegas right now.
Yeah, we should go.
It's not open.
It's closed?
It's not open.
They closed it? You can't close Vegas.
A lot of the casino hotels have been just straight up closed down, and I think
by choice because they're running such low capacity.
I think both.
Wow.
People just aren't traveling there, and I think they've got some pretty heavy restrictions that just came out.
It's awful,
but it's like 25% capacity if they're
Oh.
open.
Man, I'd still go.
Yeah,
This sucks. All right, man. Let's talk some Bitcoin today. Bitcoin bonanza, Bitcoin bandwagon.
Mm-hmm.
I love my alliteration. So, I mean, Bitcoin has been all the buzz. See more alliteration there? See what I did? As it has really worked to regain its prior high from 2017, which was like 19,500 or something like that.
Yep.
Somewhere in that range. Bitcoin has been bumping right up against 20,000.
right.
And by the time this show's published next week, who knows? Maybe it will have crossed over that 20,000 mark.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's timely and important that we have a little discussion about Bitcoin, kind of what we think about it, where we think it might be going, and the best way for investors to consider owning it should they decide they want to take on a little extra risk. Because at the end of the day, in my opinion, this is still a speculative play.
Right.
We really don't know what Bitcoin is.
Do you know what Bitcoin is?
No, I don't.
I mean, we've been talking about it for 3 years now. I'm still not crystal clear on exactly how it works, but I'm getting there.
Yeah. I mean, I know the basics, man. I
Yep.
know blockchain technology is the real deal.
Yep.
I know that there's only a limited amount of Bitcoin that they're going to mine, and then they shut it down, which makes supply and demand that much more important. And I know that adoption is the most important thing, in my opinion, to Bitcoin pricing right now. Right? As more platforms adopt it and embrace it, as more vendors adopt it and embrace it as a legitimate currency, the higher this thing is going to go.
Right, for sure.
Right, and we've already seen more and more companies adopting and embracing it, and I think that's why it's done what it's done over the course of the last several months. So as we're doing this show, I think Bitcoin's probably right around 19,000 right now.
Yep.
Is that what you're showing?
18,809 is what I'm saying.
That's a buying opportunity. Anytime it drops below 19, get in. Look, on Black Friday, this thing was on sale, like everything else on Black Friday.
Right.
I don't know if you missed that or not, but it went down to like 16,000 on Black Friday. I hope you got some on Black Friday because it's looking pretty good right now if you did.
I did not. I didn't do much other Black Friday shopping either, though.
No.
Man, I just get so bogged down. I must have got 600 emails in my Gmail over the course of 3 days.
Yeah,
so,
with Black Friday deals.
Yeah, it was basically
none of them said
spam.
buy Bitcoin.
No, I wish it had.
Yeah,
I wish
seriously.
I would have liked to add to my position a little bit, but yeah, I really think Bitcoin's really come back into the forefront. Really, I think there's lots of reasons, and we'll get into them here. I don't want to get too far off track, but what do you think of Bitcoin as kind of a hedge against volatility? Because that one seems to be not intuitive, because I think you're right. I think it's still a risky play for sure. But, I've been hearing a lot of action, a lot of talk, especially on CNBC. I saw your piece as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to put you on the spot here, but I'm really interested in your take on what you think. Do you really think
a hedge against volatility in the stock market?
Yeah. Do you really think that is a real thing, or do you think that is more of a, kind of a tagline?
Well, I mean, without a doubt, it's a non-correlated asset class, right? So
Right.
you do have that working for you, in that it is not supposed to. It's not supposed to move in sync, with the stock market.
Right.
And we've seen that. I mean, Bitcoin, since the March low, it's up 260% this year.
Mm-hmm.
Over the last month, it's up like 40-50%.
Right.
Quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
The stock market's done well, but not that well. But D, at the end of the day, man, like, I still view Bitcoin as a risk-on play.
Mm-hmm.
It's risk-on. And when investors have a greater appetite for risk, all risk assets do well.
Mm-hmm.
So stocks do well, Bitcoin can do well. You see high beta outperform low beta, copper outperform gold. Those are risk on plays.
Right.
If we were to enter a risk off mode, I couldn't imagine stocks crashing 20-30% and Bitcoin going up 20-30%. I couldn't imagine that happening. Could you?
That's what is really in this whole conversation, putting it together. That's what I can't really wrap my mind around.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem natural or intuitive, like that would be the play.
So I agree with you. I don't think that is. I don't think it's possible unless and until it becomes embraced as a go-to currency.
Right.
Then it becomes that volatility hedge.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, there's just not enough adoption yet. I think investors still view it as a risk-on play. It's not viewed as a currency. It is viewed as a speculative investment right now. All of that can change over the course of the next 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
All of it.
For sure.
Right? I mean, in mid-October, PayPal and Square decided they were going to allow their users to buy and sell Bitcoin on those platforms.
Right.
Now, everybody has either a PayPal or a Square account for the most part, right? I mean, I know it's not everybody, but it seems like just about most people have paid someone via PayPal or Cash App or Venmo, right? I mean, a lot of people use those services. So, D, back in October, Bitcoin was trading at $12,000 a coin.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as PayPal announced they were going to have this on their platform, I have a client that I was texting back and forth with. We were talking about Bitcoin a few weeks before that. I gave him my take on Bitcoin. And as soon as I heard that, I texted him back and I'm like, time to double down. PayPal just added it.
Right.
And over the course of the following 30 days, Bitcoin went from 12 to 19 grand.
Right.
Right. And I believe that played a huge role in this recent surge in Bitcoin pricing.
Right.
Right. The more platforms that embrace it, the more people that are using it, the higher the price is going to go.
Absolutely. And I think we've really seen kind of a boom here since that was announced.
Yep.
And I think you're 100% right. That was definitely the catalyst. But it's really interesting to see kind of all the different takes out there on Bitcoin.
Yep.
And we don't really know if they're all going to be right or wrong or indifferent, but I think the future is definitely bright.
I think so too, man. So D, I mentioned this. I think I did a CNBC segment on this a couple weeks ago. In what I mentioned as it relates to Bitcoin is, I think when you're looking at Bitcoin as an investor, you need to figure out how much you are willing to invest into Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
Look, there's people out there that probably have 100% of their net worth in Bitcoin. I hope it works for them. I think that's absolutely crazy.
Yes, I think so
right?
too. Right.
So what I have always been telling anyone that has asked me about Bitcoin, and I own some Bitcoin. Do you own any?
Yeah, a little bit.
All right. So what I have told people is I own an amount of Bitcoin whereby if Bitcoin went to zero, it wouldn't change my life.
Right.
But if Bitcoin 10x's over the course of the next year, 3 years, 5 years, I would literally cry myself to sleep every single night for the rest of my life if I didn't own any.
Right.
So I have to own some. How much is the right amount for you? I don't know. I think you got to figure out how much you're willing to lose, right? And I don't think Bitcoin is ever going to go from 20,000 to zero.
Right.
By no means would that happen, but I guess if that's worst case scenario, you need to take that into consideration, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head right there. Because like a lot of things, we can't predict the future. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. But in my opinion, kind of what I've been seeing is that when clients ask me or friends ask me, I almost think it's taken a little step from kind of what you just mentioned, the fear of missing out.
Yep.
Got to own a little bit, to maybe taking that position, to 1 to 2% of your overall portfolio. If that is something that would fit your risk tolerance. Because it's still going to bounce around. There's no doubt about that. But in my opinion, I think it's much less likely that this is going back down to 0 or 2,000 or 4,000. I think those levels are behind us, and that kind of volatility is a little bit behind us. Because Bitcoin really does have a lot going for it now.
Yeah, it does.
And especially with more and more people, businesses adopting it. Is really going to, I think, push some of the people that might have been on the sidelines for the last, 3 years, let's say, when it's really came into the mainstream. But you look at the real hardcore Bitcoin investors,
yeah,
and you ask them what is the price level that they're going to sell. They say there's no price level that I'm going to sell.
Well, that's stupid. I mean, you have to at some point.
Yeah,
right?
But it's kind of become more of like a Tesla or an Apple, where you have a serious cult. Cult is probably a strong word, but you have a real following.
Yeah.
Of people that are just believers in it and are going to hold it. Because they know there's a limited supply. I think that is really one of the key points when you're thinking about investing in Bitcoin, is there is a limited supply. Again, I'm not super versed on all of the details, but I believe it's something like 1,800 new coins are produced every day.
Yep.
So the supply isn't, just like the U.S. government is printing money right now, right? That's not going to happen with Bitcoin. So that's supply and demand. Look, most of the stuff that we talk about is all about supply and demand. When I was thinking about this show, CVS, I think, is a good example. Like, how many quarters in a row did CVS just beat and raise,
and the stock did nothing?
And the stock did nothing.
Right.
It should have gone up.
Yep.
There's no doubt about it, but there wasn't enough demand to push it up. So, when there's a limited supply like this, I think it puts the investor in a strong position.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we talk about, supply and demand, D, I think one interesting observation is that since PayPal and Square began to offer this on their platforms, PayPal and Square users have been buying more than 100% of the newly minted Bitcoin that hits the market every single day.
Really?
Yeah, more than 100%.
Wow.
So that right there is supply and demand 101.
Mm-hmm.
Demand far exceeds supply at this current time.
Right.
That's why you saw, the price go from 12,000 to 19,000. So I think that's something interesting based off of some of the points you just made. I want to run through. I was kind of taking notes as you were talking. You mentioned Tesla, right? Tesla's up what, like 600% this year?
Yes.
I mean, it's ridiculous, right? It's crazy. So when I get asked what's my target for Bitcoin, one of the things I've started to say, and this is not my base case target, right? But if Bitcoin or if Tesla can go up 600% in a year, what's to prevent Bitcoin from 5xing and going from 20,000 to 100,000 by the end of next year, by the end of 2021? It could happen.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's the base case. I think 20,000 going to 40,000 might be a more realistic target. But if Tesla can go up 600% in a year, don't tell me Bitcoin can't 5x in a year. It can happen.
Absolutely.
Right? All it would take, D, is for Amazon to say they are now allowing you to pay in Bitcoin.
Absolutely.
If that one thing happened, Bitcoin might go to 500,000 a coin within a year.
Because there's just not enough demand to back it up.
Well, every single transaction in the world runs through Amazon, right? I mean, if they were to say they were willing to receive payment in Bitcoin, game over.
Right.
Game over. And I can't say that won't happen. It's possible. And at this point, I'd say there's a 50-50 chance it happens sometime within the next 2 years. And if that happens, I think Bitcoin's value goes through the frickin' roof.
Absolutely.
I really do.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
That, to me, is the number one catalyst. PayPal and Venmo, or PayPal and Square with Cash App, they have added it. Now it remains to be seen if the 800-pound gorilla is willing to accept payment. Right. We'll see.
That'd be a game changer. That would be a game changer.
Keep your eyes open for that. One other thing, D, that I think investors should keep in mind. So you mentioned 1% to 2% of your portfolio in Bitcoin. I keep telling people keep it under 5%. And maybe that's 1% for you if that's what you're comfortable with. Because let's use an example here. Let's assume you've got $1 million. Okay, 5% would be 50 grand in Bitcoin.
Right.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, if you got $1 million, do I think you should have 100 grand of that million in Bitcoin? No, I think that's a little too high.
Right.
So for me, it's like 5%, right? I think you should kind of keep it at 5%. Some people might be lower than that. I really don't think you should go much higher, but certainly if Amazon adopts it, then I'll bet the farm on Bitcoin at that point.
Yep.
So the one thing, speaking of farms, let's talk about houses now. So I was talking with Chris yesterday about the concept of playing with the house's money. So we were talking about this stock that we bought, Workhorse, and did you sell it when it was at its top? Did you bail on it when it crashed? Because now it's back up to where it was before, and then it sold off again. So, and one of the biggest things I think you can take away from any speculative positions you have is play with the house's money as often as you possibly can. If you invest $10,000 into something and it goes to 20 grand, take your 10 grand back and don't even pay attention to that investment anymore.
Right.
As soon as you are 100% playing with the house's money, you don't have to worry about watching it and getting out at the right point. You got 100% of your principal back, right? So same thing with Bitcoin. If you buy in at 18,000 and it goes to 40,000, maybe you don't take all of it off the table, but take some off the table. Right? Take some off the table along the way. I mean, you can certainly ride it as much as you'd like, but I do think from a risk management standpoint, the more you can play with the house's money, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And that's kind of where I came up with that, 1% to 2%. Because if you're, let's say that same $1 million, it's invested in, a comprehensive stock strategy. Each stock position in that portfolio, would likely be around 2%.
Yeah.
So
so it's just another stock.
It's just another stock.
Yeah, I like that.
Yep.
Which, by the way, we'll save this for a different show. But there is one of our research resources just informed us today about a bank that they are now covering in their coverage universe. That's like a Bitcoin bank. So kind of an interesting concept because up until today, banks, they do business in dollars, right? And Bitcoin is Bitcoin. But this is kind of a hybrid fintech kind of platform, which we're not going to go. I'll tell you secretly after the show. Right. I don't want to pitch it on our podcast yet because I haven't done the research completely. But it is very interesting, and we'll have to talk about it. So let's just kind of wrap up with a few things, a few key data points or examples that I want to run through.
Okay.
Dee, you mentioned, that Bitcoin has traditionally been a, volatile trade. Now some people think it might be a volatility hedge. So look, there's this company, Chainalysis? Yeah, Chainalysis. So they did some research, and what they're showing with regards to Bitcoin, Dee, is that it looks like fewer people are trading it and more people are buying it and holding it.
Right.
So that, to me, is a bullish long-term signal.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, as opposed to people saying, hey, every time it hits 19,000, sell. Every time it hits 18,000, buy, and just keep bouncing back and forth.
Right.
People are now accumulating. They're accumulating Bitcoin for the long run. So I think that's bullish.
That fact right there is what changed my mind on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yep.
And then you've got some like billionaire hedge fund managers like Paul Tudor Jones, Stanley Druckenmiller. These guys are becoming crypto bulls, right? So, I always like it when someone smarter than me goes in on these investments, So that makes me feel a little better. And then you've got some people referring to this as digital gold, a potential safe haven. And I think this is what we already talked about, right? We kind of covered this. It's not there just yet because it still is a risk-on trade, right? Maybe it gets there once it's embraced, once Amazon turns that spigot on. Maybe things change a little bit, but I think it's a bit premature to call it digital gold, to call it a safe haven play. Right. You agree with that?
Absolutely. And that's why I talked about it up front and put things out of order a little bit. Because I think a lot of people are asking that right now. I hear that a lot, and I think probably our listeners are wondering about that. And while, like I said, my overall position has changed over the last couple months, I definitely don't think it's there yet as far as it being a hedge against volatility.
It's certainly not there yet. It is volatility right now.
Right.
So it's definitely not a hedge yet. But I think if you are interested in Bitcoin, the biggest news flow you could be watching right now is who's adopting it and embracing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are vendors and merchants beginning to accept it as a viable currency? As you see those things starting to happen, your conviction in Bitcoin should go up.
Yeah.
Right?
No doubt. No doubt.
Like I said, I'm still waiting for Amazon. Right? Once that happens, sky's the limit for Bitcoin. Because there's only 21 million Bitcoins they're ever going to mine.
Right.
I don't even know what they mean by mine. What, people sit there with their computers and they create these things? I have no idea what that's all about. Nor do you.
So I kind of do. Probably not the best place for it at the end of the show. But yeah, you have to run all these algorithms, and it produces the coins at a slow rate. So that's why the Bitcoin miners need all these giant computers with giant cooling systems, because they're running that, and they're handling the transactions too. Yeah. So that's where the blockchain comes in.
And that's one of the great things about the blockchain technology, right? Is it basically it eliminates the need for a middleman, right? Which has always been the banks.
Right.
You no longer need the middleman because the transaction is recorded on a ledger.
Right.
It's always there. There is no middleman. And in the long run, blockchain technology, crypto, Bitcoin, transactions should be easier and more cost-effective for them to occur because you are eliminating the middleman.
Yep, absolutely. That's it right there.
All right, hit the nail on the head. It's a good way to wrap up there. All right, so let's talk swag.
Yes.
Real briefly, we got some new Nike hoodies. Did you see them?
They're amazing.
Dude, they are awesome. We got some new Nike shirts, too. Did you see those?
Yes.
Those
mine actually
are
fits.
Tiny. They're tiny.
I don't know why, but mine actually fits. I put it on the other day.
Yeah, good for you.
I was going to work out today.
I had to size up.
I was going to take my picture, but I have no power at my house.
Yeah, it sucks.
So maybe next week.
No power, no water. Not good, man. It's time to get out of Cleveland.
Yeah.
All right, but the swag continues to get better and better and better. The Nike shirts are great. If you want a Nike shirt, shoot us an email, info@swpconnect.com. You got to give us a 5-star review and write a little comment on your podcast app, whatever that might be, and shoot us an email. If you want the shirt, you're probably going to want to size up. That's my opinion. D says his fits just fine. I think you should size up. The Nike hoodies are legit. I mean, it's not your typical crappy cotton hoodie. This is like their awesome dry fit material.
I was wearing it yesterday, actually, to come into the office.
Yeah, if I didn't have TV today, I'd be wearing it right now. It's all I want to wear anymore.
I know.
I need 5 of them, Monday through Friday. So yeah, leave us that 5-star review. If you haven't subscribed yet, you got to subscribe. You got to hit the subscribe button. We love continuing to have an opportunity to communicate with every single one of you. We appreciate you tuning in week after week and downloading the latest episode. But hit that subscribe button, and you can make sure that you don't miss out on any of this unbelievable information.
It's great content.
Yeah, it's always great content. Yeah. Plus, our swag is the bomb. The real deal.
It's true.
All right, so that wraps up today's show. As always, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you next week.